How's it going, everybody? My name is The Starks, and welcome back to another The Last of Us video. Apparently, The Last of Us director teases a new PlayStation 5 video game. Could it be The Last of Us Part 3, or is Naughty Dog working on a new IP? Well, according to comicbook.com, they state, as one of the co-creators of The Last of Us and a key figure in the Uncharted series as well, Neil Druckmann is undoubtedly one of the most prominent and talented directors in the industry, and he has teased his next video game. Of course, this game will be a PlayStation 5 title, but that's all we know about it. Druckmann has teased that his next game with Naughty Dog will be, quote, structured more like a TV show. And with The Last of Us getting a TV adaptation through HBO and Sony apparently going all in on television and movie adaptations of PlayStation IPs, perhaps this is some wise future-proofing. Whatever the case, Druckmann's most recent game, The Last of Us Part 2, with all of its cutscenes and narrative, was already more like a television show than most games, so it's hard to imagine this aspect turned up even more. In addition to this, Neil Druckmann has revealed he's going to have an entire team of writers working with him for the very first time. Of course, this will mean less of a video game will be written by Druckmann himself. That said, if the game is going to be more like a television show, it's going to demand more writing, so this makes sense. Unfortunately, however, this is all Druckmann has said about the game they're working on right now, which is rumored to be The Last of Us Part 3. That said, why a third game in the series would be more like a television show than the previous entries, we don't know. It doesn't really add up. In other words, these quotes seem to suggest a new IP. And that's what I want to talk about in today's video. The Last of Us is a huge IP and a lot of people love it, but Naughty Dog is a great studio and I know they have some creative ideas as well. But before we get into all that, I wanted to share this tweet from Okami Games, which is kind of what the website took the tweet, the reference from basically, which is Neil Druckmann says his next Naughty Dog title is structured more like a TV show than any other Naughty Dog title before it. He'll also be using a team of writers alongside him for the very first time. And there was a lot in regards to this thread, and there's a lot of reaction. But essentially, this guy got this quote from a blog from the New Yorker that Neil Druckmann kind of went on an interview with. And Neil Druckmann on the December 27th of last year, 2022. Quote tweeted the Game Awards, who kind of basically announced that in this profile, Naughty Dog's Neil Druckmann says his next game is structured like a TV show. He quote tweeted that saying, "I'm sure no one will misconstrue what this means." Obviously, that's sarcasm. "Spoiler alert, it's about making our games in an even more collaborative manner. Stoked to show you our projects as soon as we can." And furthermore, 23 hours ago from the time of this recording, Neil Druckmann said, in celebration of the New Year, saying, "Happy New Year, peeps. As always, thank you so very much for this incredible support. We got lots of cool stuff coming next year that we can't wait to share with y'all. P.S. Be wary of, quote, insider information. Much of it is false," which is really interesting. And before I get to why that's interesting, I wanted to share some other things. So, in April 28th of 2021, Video Game Chronicle on their website states that The Last of Us 3's story outline has, quote, already been written, director reveals, director being Neil Druckmann. And we know this, a lot of the community in The Last of Us lost their shit when Neil Druckmann basically said, "Hey, we have an outline for The Last of Us." He basically says, "I don't know how much I want to reveal," Druckmann explained. And he said that co-writer Haley Gross did write an outline for a story that we're not making, but I hope one day we can see the light of day that explores a little bit what happens after this game. We'll see. And that's a part of what's really interesting, but also the same year, earlier on that year, January 21st, IGN posted this article that's saying, "No, a Naughty Dog artist didn't leak an unannounced fantasy game." As we know, Naughty Dog, there was this photo, image, concept art that released on Twitter in the early months of 2021, or even before then, I think, of a character, a fantasy-looking character, and a slayed dragon on the floor dead. and a lot of the community speculated that this is Naughty Dog's next title. This is their next IP. But of course, this was kind of confirmed not to be the case, and apparently the pieces were posted with a caption originally reading, quote, "Inspired from the new game, you know what I'm talking about, ... After being circulated that past week, some fans and media outlets, like I said, speculated that this is the new game. Could this be Naughty Dog's next unannounced title? However, speaking to IGN, a senior concept artist for Naughty Dog explained that the illustration is not for Naughty Dog's next video game, and added that this was fan art inspired by and made while the artist played Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is really more interesting. And the reason I say that is because I genuinely do not believe that Naughty Dog is working on The Last of Us Part 3. As awesome as it would be and cool it would be to explore the realm of The Last of Us in that universe, which I very much love, I don't know how wise it would be for Naughty Dog to take on that, I want to say, burden. And the reason I call it that is because of how polarizing The Last of Us Part 2 is, whether deservedly or not. I don't know if Naughty Dog has the balls to make a third game after what happened with The Last of Us Part 2. I absolutely love The Last of Us Part 2, by the way. I made a review for it, and I gave it a 10 out of 10. I think it's a masterful video game. I think it's a beautiful game. However, I don't know if that's the wise thing to do. I think Naughty Dog has focused for the better part of a decade or more, focused on The Last of Us and Uncharted IPs. And I think it would be cool and awesome and exciting for Naughty Dog to take on something new and creative that isn't The Last of Us and Uncharted. Something that could be this apparent fantasy game that this senior artist claims was fan art for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is odd to me because I don't think there's any dragons in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, yet the concept art shows a dragon. And I know concept art isn't intended to be a perfect replica of the game or events that happen. It's just concept art. But the point is, I don't believe Naughty Dog is working on The Last of Us Part 3. And I hope they're not, even though I love The Last of Us. I absolutely adore it. I think Naughty Dog should focus more on creating new things other than The Last of Us Factions, which we know they're working on. That's been confirmed. We know that this is coming for the year of 2023, which we're at right now. And by the way, Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you enjoyed your celebrations. But yeah, The Last of Us Factions they're working on. That is cool. But it's funny because for instance, when Naughty Dog announced that The Last of Us Part 1 was being remade, or there was a remake for the game, I was quite disappointed. I'm a fan of The Last of Us, but not only did it not include multiplayer, which I understood, it just, I was really hoping Naughty Dog wasn't focusing their attention on an IP that they've been stuck on since 2013. And don't get me wrong, I understand their vision, and I respect it, and I supported them. I have the video game. What I don't like about it, though, is it's a little too realistic. This was one of my criticisms of The Last of Us Part 2 as well. One of if not my only criticism of The Last of Us Part 2, which was that it was too ultra realistic. And I understand that's the design. That's what. But I really like how invincible I felt playing Joel in The Last of Us in the first game. In the 2013 and 2014 remastered versions. And so when The Last of Us Part 2 came out, and I said this, it felt like really disconnected. The gameplay, not only the gameplay, but primarily the gameplay felt so disconnected from the first game. And so I completely understand their vision from wanting to remake The Last of Us into this game that would basically take the graphical, not only the graphical fidelity, but the mechanical realism of Part 2 and bring it up tenfold and make this masterful video game even feel more realistic. I completely understand that vision, but I'm worried that Naughty Dog is too fixated on this IP, and I think they need to move on, and I want them to, and I mean this with all sincerity. Naughty Dog is my favorite video game company of all time. Yes, I like Rockstar and other companies, but I support Naughty Dog so much, and they've been a lot of their games have resonated with me over the course of many, many years through school and everything else, and other things that I've, during parts of my life, right? I absolutely love Naughty Dog, They're my favorite video game company, and I will support them regardless of what they do. If they announce, hey, we're making a third Last of Us, I'm gonna support it. But the point is, I want Naughty Dog to make something new and different, and so I'm gonna go all walls to the balls here, or whatever the saying is, and say that I believe that Naughty Dog is working not only on this Factions title, obviously, but that they are working on a new IP. And I hope they are, obviously. I can't say for sure, but that's my speculation, is that Naughty Dog is working on a new IP. Whether it's this fantasy game with this concept art that we saw a year ago, over a year ago now, we don't know. But I will say that regardless of what they're doing, they could make another globe-trotting adventure like Uncharted, or a post-apocalyptic neo-noir kind of game. I don't care what they make. But I want them to make a new IP so bad, because I know Naughty Dog is a team of talented developers who will make something very great. And what's interesting, though, to the point of, because I didn't speak too much about it, but to the point of the multiple writers is really interesting to me, because, and like this article Comic Book said, they too agree that why would The Last of Us Part 3 require so many writers? I believe Jonathan, I forget his last name, from IGN, I believe is still working at Naughty Dog, or he announced some time ago that he's working on Naughty Dog, I believe doing some kind of writing project. And we've seen other journalists, like Alana Pierce, I think is her name. I don't really know. I don't follow her at all. But she apparently worked on God of War. And you see other creators in the community, not just specifically related to the Last of Us community, but I mean in the gaming PlayStation community, where they're taking these talented creators and having them influence their video games, which I don't know if I necessarily agree too much on, but point being is that I don't know if The Last of Us Part 3 requires multiple writers like this. Like, I know Haley Gross, Neil Druckmann, and I believe Josh Schur, and maybe another writer helped collaborate with The Last of Us Part 2. I can't remember if Josh Schur actually wrote a lot of it. I know he did a lot of the jokes and certain dialogues in Uncharted 4, but I don't know how much of Josh Schur's influence was in The Last of Us Part 2, especially now that he's no longer working at Naughty Dog. But the point is, I don't know if Naughty Dog needs a bunch of writers to work on The Last of Us Part 3. However, it has been outlined, and according to Neil Druckmann, he says, I don't know how much he can reveal, and that we're not making it, but I hope one day can see the light of day. One day can see the light of day. And these developers tend to deceive, and lie, and kind of, because that they're trying to protect their IPs and what they're making, and have it more of an impact when they finally reveal it. But if it turns out that Naughty Dog is working on a third Last of Us, I will be disappointed. Yes, I will support it, but I'll be disappointed regardless. And so I hope they're working on a new IP. What it is, we don't know. But I'm curious to know everybody's thoughts and opinions about Naughty Dog, The Last of Us Part 3, hopefully this new PlayStation 5 exclusive intellectual property that Naughty Dog may be working on. What do you think? Do you think that Naughty Dog is working on The Last of Us Part 3 and that they're fully developed in creating that game? Or do you think that the studio is working on a new, fresh, new, exciting IP? Could it be a fantasy game? We don't know. But if you do believe that they're working on a new IP, what genre would you like to see Naughty Dog develop? Do you want them to do a fantasy game? Do you want them to do a Daft Punk game? Do you want them to do a space fantasy game? Like, there's endless genres in which Naughty Dog can make these great games, and I'm just curious to know everybody's thoughts and opinions regarding that. And of course, let me know in the comment section below. And with that all being said, I have been the Starks. Peace.